So we've made it to day 6 of Hurricane Watch, and this is probably going to be our last day to be on Hurricane Watch for Southwest Florida. Now, definitely keep in mind that the Atlantic coast in Florida into Georgia and the Carolinas are far from this event, and so definitely still keep them in your thoughts. And the Bahamas, I know the latest information is that the pressure has increased, or the pressure has gone up, the wind speeds have gone down. It's dropped from a Cat 5 to a Cat 4. Winds have dropped from the 180s to like 150, but this thing's been sitting there churning over the Grand Island at the Bahamas all day long, since I got up this morning, just like stationary. And even at 150 mile an hour winds, I mean, if you're seeing any of the videos and the reports that are coming out of the islands that were hit yesterday, it's heart-wrenching. So you definitely got to keep those people in your thoughts right now. So as I come to what is potentially my final day of hurricane prep and hurricane watch, I just had a few final thoughts. Like, I'm just going to show you, like, yesterday. The big thing, honestly, is just education. Like, I've learned so much, and nothing will inspire you to learn about your enemy faster than an imminent threat. And that's basically what the last few days have been for me, learning so much. So when I got up this morning, if you can see right here, this is a map of South Florida. And the little dot right here, that's where I'm at. And the county neighboring to me was in a tropical storm watch. Not a warning, just a tropical storm watch. And there's literally 3 counties. And like, I'm at the very, as you can see, the very bottom of South Florida. And there are 3 counties wide. Now, one was in a hurricane watch, which is, I think they're actually still in a watch, not a warning, but that could still change. And then a tropical storm watch, and then our county. But this thing, because all day yesterday it only moved west. It wasn't making that north turn like they were hoping, but it has been sitting on top of the Bahamas, on the Grand Bahama, the island, all day. And so now they said this is the point where it stopped, where it's going to start making that northward turn. So they've pretty much like said we're not going to get anything. It's cloudy here. It thundered earlier and it rained a little, and they said that's what we're going to get, is just probably a little breeze, a little rain. And it's like you kind of want to like have a sigh of relief, but then you're thinking, like, so many people are still, in harm's way. Like, it may be over for us here in this part of the state, but this state as a whole is still not out of the threat yet. And you still got to keep those in your thoughts, Just got to think about them. Updating on the NOAA, the Atlantic, the little storm that I've been watching this week. Today, it has gone up to an 80% chance of formation. And that's 80% chance that it's going to form something in the 2-day forecast. So, 80% chances. Okay, so there's that. And then the last one. Even though, like, my section of Southwest Florida is out of this imminent threat zone, I just want to show you this picture And it's a satellite image. If you can see this little dot right here, this little pink dot is me. This is Florida, and that's the storm. Now, threat or no threat, that is a really scary and sobering picture, to think that I'm that far away from a major hurricane. That's scary. So this has been a really stressful week, and I think the big thing is I just want to have some final thoughts on my takeaway from this whole week. And again, the big thing is just education. Like, when I was in North Georgia, I've had personal experience with tornadoes. With my time with the fire department, I had taken the classes to be a certified storm spotter, and I worked a Red Cross shelter when there were evacuees from Hurricane Irma. So I thought, I know a little bit about natural disasters, and I know a little bit about, these kind of things. But then I came down here and I realized that I didn't really know as much as I thought I did. This has been a whole world of learning experience, and I've had to learn about evacuation zones and evacuation routes, and how to make your own sandbags, and there's just been a lot to this, and how to prep and what kind of supplies you need, and there's just been a lot involved in this. And so, that's like just the big thing is like educate yourself, like know your area, know where you're at and what kind of threats can be there. Like, is there potential flooding that could happen? Are you in an area that could get severe weather? Even if you don't get severe weather, like, what are the temperatures? Are there like risk for frostbite? Are there risks for like, are you in an area that gets like hot and there are heat emergencies, heat stroke? Like, just know the risks in the area that you're at. Educate yourself, know your plan, have an emergency plan. That has just been the biggest thing here. In 2014, if you remember the ice storm debacle that we had in Atlanta, there was a big snowstorm that was moving in out of Alabama, and it was originally forecasted that it was moving in from lower Alabama into South Georgia and then moving up into North Georgia. Well, at the time, I worked in Atlanta and lived about 60 miles north of Atlanta. So my plan was to go into work that morning and just monitor the conditions, the storm. Now, I got off work at like 3:30, so initially I was going to be fine to work my whole shift, but we were going to keep an eye on it in case I needed to leave early. Well, the forecasters, they do the best they can, but, nobody can tell Mother Nature what she can and cannot do. So there was a shift in the system. The storm actually came in from the north part of the state, from the north part of the state. And it started snowing up at my home. So everybody, my friends, my family, everyone was texting me saying, it's snowing here, get home, don't be on the roads. So I told my manager, I said, okay, it's starting to snow at my house, So she said, well, let me know when you need to leave. So then I was sent a picture of a parking lot, and the snow was about 2 inches deep. So I went to her and she said, okay, get out of here, go home, be safe, let me know when you get home. So I left the hospital in Atlanta, got on 75. Within 10 minutes, I was at a complete stop. Like, that's when the system moved through Cobb County everything, the roads were completely frozen over. I passed about 100 wrecks that night. I made it home, but it took me 13 hours, and I didn't make it home to my house. I actually made it to the south part of my county because my mom lived right off of the interstate, or not that really the interstate, but like 515. It's like a state road, but anyway, she lived right off a main road, and so I was able to get to her house 13 hours later. And I lived up on the mountain, and all the roads were shut down. My son and my daughter were at home when this storm hit. Luckily, they were teenagers, so they weren't like children, or they probably wouldn't have been at home by themselves. But I did not get to see my house or my children for 3 days. It was 3 days before, the roads cleared up enough to make it home. And so after that, there was a huge lesson learned, and I packed myself an emergency bag. Like, I put a change of clothes, a jacket, a blanket, a little toboggan, $20 worth of cash, 3 bottles of water, a pack of peanut butter crackers. Like, I made me an emergency bag and put that in my car. And it stayed in my car until I traded my car and took everything out. Now, when I traded my car, I did not live up on the mountain anymore. I actually moved to a different town. And I've never put an emergency bag back in my car. But all of this week, with all this preparing, and am I going to have to evacuate? Will I not have to evacuate? Am I going to need to go to the Red Cross shelter? Like, you don't know. So biggest lesson is I'm putting an emergency bag back in my car. And I suggest anyone watching this, if you don't have one, pack a bag with some essentials and keep it in your car. Everybody's got at least one change of clothes that they never wear. Like, if it's like a pair of like sweatpants and a t-shirt and a sweatshirt, because you don't know what kind of weather. If it's going to be cold, is it going to be hot, is it going to be rainy? Just put a change of clothes and a few little essentials in a bag. Put it in your car and leave it there. Don't get it out. So the big thing is planning and preparing. That has been like such a huge thing that I've learned this week. Like, know your risks that are in your area and have an emergency plan for everything that you could go through. Okay? And then one other thing that I had talked on or touched on the other day about hurricane fatigue. So that's had me thinking, because I remember in one of my psychology courses that we talked about, it was abnormal psychology, and we were talking about, I remember it having something to do with like people who watch like way too much of like negative or traumatic stuff on the news, like particularly after 9/11. This was a big thing. So all my books are packed up because I've pretty much packed my whole apartment up. So I started doing some research and looking online, and every like psychology page I could find, what it is literally you can develop a PTSD from watching too much footage of something like this, like a natural disaster or some kind of really traumatic event. Now, obviously, anyone who is a survivor of a natural disaster or a traumatic event is more sensitive to that and more, triggered. Like in my case, I have been, I am a survivor of a tornado and a flood. So I am a natural disaster survivor. And like I mentioned with my therapist, apparently I have this survivor's guilt or survivor's remorse, they call it. It's interchangeable, but I have had the Weather Channel on nonstop. Like, I've not watched anything else but the Weather Channel since, I don't know, I think Monday maybe, around the clock. Now, yesterday I didn't work and I went absolutely stir crazy, especially after the storm made landfall in the Bahamas. I'm convinced this camera hates me. Actually, the memory card was full and I had to delete some stuff off. But what I was saying is I've been watching the Weather Channel around the clock this entire week. Especially since yesterday, well, yesterday when when the hurricane made landfall in the Bahamas and videos and stuff started circulating, coming out, like I was glued to this TV and I was going crazy. Like, I would get up to go try to do something. 10 minutes later, I was back in here in front of the TV. And it was so pretty early yesterday. All day long, it was like sunny and pretty here. And I was like, you know, I have got to get out of this apartment. I had only been out once the entire week, and that was to go get gas on Wednesday morning. So I decided to venture out yesterday evening. Went to Target and Ross, you know, did a little retail therapy. Just, I had to get out of the house because I was going crazy. And when I came back last night, TV was back on. TV stayed on all night till I went to bed. TV came on as soon as I got up this morning. All day I worked from home, so the TV was on in here while I was in there working, and I finally had to come in here and say, enough is enough. Like, I have to cut this off. Because, you know, that's when I started like looking it up and doing this research, and I was like, that's what I'm doing to myself. Like, I'm literally trying to live through this disaster with everyone and trying to relive through my own disasters. And oh my God, you will drive yourself crazy. So the big thing is, you know, the biggest takeaway that I want anyone to get from these videos is obviously educate yourself and prepare for these kind of things. But a big part of that is you've got to take care of yourself. Yes, you need to have your emergency plan. Yes, you need to have your emergency kit. Yes, you need to be educated. Know your evacuation routes. Know your evacuation plan. Know everything. But you've got to take care of yourself, and a lot of that is mentally and psychologically. Like, if it's too much, don't sit and watch this news footage round the clock. Like, I actually read this one report that said limiting like the amount of exposure you have to news footage, like 3 hours. Only watch the news footage for 3 hours a day when there's like some huge natural disaster unfolding. But you got it, you know? I mean, I guess it's true. And I say that knowing that I'm probably going to have the Weather Channel back on tonight, which I don't know. I really don't know. At this point, I've been moved kind of out of the area that's on hurricane watch. It's, you know, it's pretty sure now that we're not going to get anything other than just a little rain. So I really don't have any reason to watch this anymore. I'm prepped, I'm ready, and now, you know, it's over for us. Of course I care about everyone that's on the coast. Of course I care about all the cities and the beaches and the towns up the coast. Of course I care that Georgia, that's my home state, is involved. Of course I care about the Carolinas. Henry's from North Carolina. So I care about everyone else that's been impacted by this storm. But sitting here and watching the Weather Channel around the clock isn't going to do anything for anyone. and it's just going to drive me crazy, and I've got to get away from the TV and be productive doing something else. So that's just really it. That's just my final thoughts on this, going through this whole week is like, and I cannot stress it enough. I know I sound like a broken record, but educate yourselves. Have a plan, have an emergency plan, have an emergency kit, and take care of yourself psychologically, because this has been unquestionably the most stressful week that I have gone through. I mean, all the uncertainty, like, is the storm coming here? Is it going to turn? Is it going to come here? Is it going to turn? Are we going to get tropical storm weather? Are we going to get nothing? Like, this whole back and forth, like, it's going to turn, then yesterday it stayed west. This has been so trying on me. And to go through it by myself is just, it's good and bad. Honestly, it was so scary to think about going through this by myself. But, you know, I didn't have anyone here to say, can you take care of this? Can you do that part? Or they can say, hey, you don't have to worry about that. I did it. I did all of this hurricane prep all by myself. So in the event, you know, like, I really saw that I could do it, you know, like, in a pinch, I stepped up and I took care of everything that needed to be taken care of. So that was good, but it was still bad to go through it alone. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But the thing is just, you just gotta be ready for these kind of things, because you never know when they're gonna happen. And the psychological, like, effect that this will have on you is not anything that I'm going to tell you. This book gave me a lot of insight on preparing for this storm. It gave me a lot of information that I needed to know as far as evacuation plans and how to monitor how far the storm was away from me. But this book did not tell me anything about the psychological impact that this week was going to have on me mentally. And now I'm ready to just take a break. I want to take a break from watching the Weather Channel. I want to take a break from talking about hurricanes and natural disasters and prepping, and I just want to wind down. I think I'm going to get a book and just sit down and read tonight, or I'm going to do something, but I need to give myself a timeout. So that's really kind of my final thoughts on this. And if you have followed along with these videos with me this week, I just want to tell you, thank you so much for letting me vent to you and just talk this out with you, because it has been scary and it has been really stressful to go through this by myself. And this was like the only way that I knew that I could kind of get these thoughts and these feelings and these fears processed out of my head and purge them, just to kind of get through this week, because otherwise, you know, being left alone with your thoughts can be a dangerous place to be. And I just needed some avenue to get them out and just share them. And I hope that if in some way something this week, you know, has helped you, you know, think about these things, and like has taught you something about, you know, how to prepare for a natural disaster, or make you think about being more aware of being ready for an emergency. I hope it has.